What if I told you that one of the most groundbreaking scientific discoveries of the 20th century was actually written down in a book over 1400 years ago? It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, right? But stick with me, because what we're about to explore is a fascinating intersection of modern cosmology and ancient revelation. For most of human history, the prevailing scientific idea was that the universe was eternal, static, and unchanging. It had always been here, and it would always be here. That was the comfortable, accepted truth. It took centuries of brilliant minds, from Newton to Einstein, to build the foundations of our understanding of the cosmos. But even with all their genius, the idea of a universe with a definite beginning was still on the fringes. Then, in the 1920s, everything changed. First, there was Alexander Friedmann, a Russian mathematician, who looked at Einstein's equations and realized they could describe a universe that was expanding. Then came Georges Lemaître, a Belgian priest and astronomer. In 1927, he proposed what would later be known as the Big Bang Theory. He hypothesized that the universe began from a single, incredibly dense and hot primeval atom. It was a radical idea, a concept that suggested our entire existence exploded into being from a single point. Just a couple of years later, in 1929, the American astronomer Edwin Hubble provided the observational evidence. He looked through his powerful telescope and saw that distant galaxies were all moving away from us, and the farther away they were, the faster they were receding. This was the cosmic echo of that initial explosion. The universe wasn't static. It was expanding, just as Lemaître and Friedmann had predicted. The scientific community was shaken. The idea of a static, eternal universe was shattered, replaced by a dynamic, evolving cosmos with a definitive starting point. The Big Bang Theory became the cornerstone of modern cosmology. Now, let's rewind. Way back, not to the 1920s, but to the 7th century, in the deserts of Arabia. A message was being revealed to the Prophet Muhammad. A message that would be compiled into the book we know as the Quran. This book wasn't a scientific textbook. It was a guide for life, for morality, for spirituality. It spoke of God, of prophets, of the afterlife. But nestled within its verses were descriptions of the natural world that, for centuries, were simply taken as statements of divine power. And here is where our story takes an incredible turn. Let's look at a specific verse from the Quran, from Surah Al-Anbiya, or the Prophets. It's verse 30, and it poses a question. Have not those who disbelieved known that the heavens and the earth were a joined entity, then we split them apart? Let's just pause and really think about that. The heavens and the earth were a joined entity. In the original Arabic, the word used is Ratqan, which means something that is sewn together, a single, fused mass, a cohesive unit without any gaps. It describes a state of singularity, one single, unified reality. Then, the verse says, then we split them apart. The Arabic word here is Fataqnahuma, which means to unstitch, to cleave, to tear or break apart, to separate with force. This describes a violent event of separation, an unfusing of that initial single entity, a joined entity that was split apart. Does that sound familiar? It's an astonishingly precise description of the Big Bang, an initial state of singularity, where all matter and energy in the universe, everything that would become galaxies, stars, planets, and O's was concentrated in an infinitesimally small, hot, dense point. That's the Ratqan, the joined entity. Then, an unimaginable explosion, an expansion that split apart that singularity, flinging matter and energy outwards and creating space and time as we know it. That is for over a millennium, this verse was there, read and recited by millions. Scholars interpreted it in various ways, often poetically or metaphorically. How could they not? The scientific knowledge to understand it literally, simply did not exist. The idea that the vast heavens and our solid earth were once a single, tiny point would have been incomprehensible. It was a message locked in time, waiting for a key. That key, it turns out, was the telescope of Edwin Hubble and the mathematics of Lemaître and Friedman. It took humanity 1400 years of scientific progress, of observation, of theory, of debate, to arrive at a conclusion that was elegantly and simply stated in a single line of the Quran. This wasn't a lucky guess or a vague, poetic phrase that could be interpreted in 100 different ways. The language is specific. Ratqan joined, sewn together mass. Fataqnahuma splitting, a tearing asunder. It's a perfect, sequential description of the cosmological event that science now confirms is the origin of our universe. Think about the context. In the 7th century, the dominant cosmological models were based on Greek philosophy or ancient myths. People believed the Earth was the center of the universe, with celestial spheres rotating around it. The idea of a universe beginning from a singular point of fusion was not just unknown, it was unthinkable. It ran counter to all the science and philosophy of the day. So, where did this information come from? The verse itself begins with a challenge. Have not those who disbelieved known? It's as if the text is pointing to a future time when humanity, through its own efforts and discoveries, would uncover this very truth, and then be forced to ask themselves how this knowledge was present in a 1400-year-old book. It's a challenge to skepticism. Today, we have the incredible privilege of living in that future time. We are the ones who have known. We have the cosmic microwave background radiation, the afterglow of the Big Bang. We have the redshifting of distant galaxies. We have particle accelerators that can recreate the conditions of the first moments of the universe. All this data points to one single, monumental event, the beginning. So, what does this mean? For people of faith, it's seen as a powerful sign, a scientific miracle embedded in the scripture. It's evidence that the Quran's source is not human, but divine, as no human in the 7th century could have possessed this knowledge. It deepens their conviction that the book is a timeless message from the creator of the very universe it describes. But even if you're not a person of faith, you have to admit, it's a mind-blowing historical and intellectual puzzle. How do you explain this? Coincidence. The probability of randomly guessing a cosmological model that would only be confirmed 14 centuries later, and describing it so accurately, is just astronomically low. Is it a lost, ancient knowledge? There's no historical evidence of any civilization possessing this specific concept of cosmology. It challenges us to look at the world and our sources of knowledge with a more open mind. Science, with its rigorous method of observation and experimentation, is an amazing tool for understanding the how of the universe. It tells us about the mechanics, the processes, the physical laws. Revelation, on the other hand, often speaks to the why. It speaks of purpose, of meaning, of our place within this vast cosmos. But what if, sometimes, they speak of the same thing, just in different languages? Science calls it the Big Bang. The Quran calls it a sign from God. Perhaps both are pointing to the same fundamental truth, that our universe, in all its complexity and grandeur, had a beginning. And that beginning was an event of awe-inspiring power and creation. The story doesn't even stop there. The verse continues, ... and we made from water every living thing. Will they not then believe? This second part of the verse points to another scientific fact we now take for granted. The origin of life is inextricably linked to water. All life as we know it from the smallest microbe to the largest whale, depends on water. Cell cytoplasm is mostly water. Life on Earth is thought to have begun in the oceans. When we look for life on other planets, the first thing we search for is the signature of water. Again, a fundamental biological principle, stated plainly, but focusing on the Big Bang, this convergence of ancient text and modern science is truly humbling. It suggests that knowledge and truth can come from different pathways. When science, after a long and arduous journey, finally caught up to the concept of a cosmic beginning, it found that revelation was already there, waiting patiently for 1400 years. It's a beautiful, thought-provoking idea that invites us to bridge the gap between faith and reason, and to marvel at the mysteries of our universe, both seen and unseen. What do you think? Is it a stunning coincidence, or a message across time? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective on this. Thanks so much for joining me on this exploration today. If you found this as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next dive into these amazing topics. Until next time, stay curious.